Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Purple Door Podcast, Episode 1. Today, you are listening to Elizabeth Grauer and
Lindsay Koppel.
And today, we're going to be talking about domestic violence.
So, what even is domestic violence?
Domestic violence is something that can happen to anyone, and it's when you are getting hurt physically, mentally, emotionally by a person and trying to get help from it.
And it's within the family. It's, categorized as either a spouse, a former spouse, a child, someone you share a child with, or someone you live with, someone you formerly lived with, anything like that.
Yeah, so it is something that can happen to anyone, man and female. However, 1 out of every 3 women, yes, if you have a mom, sister, and you, it's one of you that have dealt with or going to deal with domestic violence. And 1 out of every 4 men deal with domestic violence as well. So it is something that is very prevalent. So it's not only physical. Domestic violence happens in multiple ways.
Financially, mentally, verbally, any kind of, violence against somebody. There's many acts that have been put in place for it. Some are more helpful than others, but we kind of want to speak on a few of them today, like the Violence Against Women Act, put in place in 1994. How about that one?
That one, I think, was a very good one that was put in place, but I also feel like it was one that was very obvious. So within this act, it talks about if an abuser goes across any lines, such as going from Georgia to Florida, to contact you or see you by mail, computer, text messages, that they will be put against domestic violence charges, which I think is very good because that means that they're...
So basically, if you're stalking somebody or harassing anybody, you're going to be... that makes sense. I don't think anyone should be stalking and harassing anybody or physically abusing anybody,
And obviously, if they're going across state lines,
if they're going to these measures,
then it is obviously something that is very serious.
Yeah, exactly. I think one good thing about this act is that, if it's found that somebody is being struggling with domestic violence and is in that situation, there are costs that can be covered for medical care, psychological care, child care expenses, attorney's fees, and a bunch of costs that can be covered. And I think that's important because when you're in that situation, not only are you extremely traumatized, but having to deal with everything else, and adding children to that is a huge struggle,
When you're going through something like that, that's like the last thing that you want to have to think about, because you have to battle it yourself. Not only just you, but your kids are confused about what everything is going on. So just thinking about having to pay just to feel safe again, I just think it's very important.
I agree. And a home is somewhere you're supposed to feel loved and accepted and supported. It's not when there's danger in your home, you don't feel safe anywhere,
Yeah, why would you want to go back home?
Exactly. That kind of brings us on to the Safe Housing Act, put in 1968.
Yes, within this act, if you're in a complex and they find that you're dealing with domestic violence, they have to change your locks within the 48 hours that you put in order to change your locks, so you can get that safety that everyone deserves. And
not that a lock will, if somebody's going to break down a door, they will. But, just knowing that that's put in place to keep you safe, it's people, just like if a landlord is there for you, people are supporting you, trying to keep you safe. I think it's, beneficial, even for the mental state, just to know that the doors are locked, you're okay.
Yeah, and I just think that, I just hope that this gets out to a lot of people for the awareness, because a lot of people aren't aware of these things that are put in place. This could really be the one thing that someone needs to feel safe in their home with their kids. So knowing that they can't get kicked out because of what they're dealing with, and they can feel a little bit safer, really means a lot. But honestly, in my case, I would want to go and get resources and live at a different location rather than stay in the same home that I was abused in.
I agree. I think there's obviously many different routes to take. I think all of them are hard. I think that's probably a harder one too, leaving everything people making that huge step. But it depends on the situation. But all of them are it's a serious issue.
Yeah, and that brings me into a question that we've been asked a lot, and it's like, is there enough help? As we are a business and company trying to help everyone here in domestic violence and share awareness, is there enough help for everyone here?
I don't think there is. I think it's not talked about enough in the media, in education. I think it's brushed on pretty quickly because it's a scary topic to talk about and shed light upon, but it's a very serious issue, and if it's happening in 1 out of 4 men, 1 out of 3 women, it's prevalent enough that it should be talked about a lot more.
Exactly. I believe that in the education system, even when I know you don't want to tell a 2-year-old domestic violence, stuff like that, but I'm talking about in elementary school when they're actually starting to learn things and actually see things. If you can talk about general sex ed, then I think that you can definitely talk about some of the other serious things such as domestic violence.
Obviously, I mean, in appropriate manners, but it's important that these kids know that there is help available to them.
Yes, because it only takes one person to really get the help that they need. If they can tell a teacher, they can tell a trusted adult,
just to know that somebody is there and they can do something and they're not stuck.
Yeah, I feel like the media sees it as more of a hype train than an actual problem, as there's not enough awareness spread. When it comes to October, which is Domestic Violence Month, then yes, it gets the help that it needs, but honestly, I don't think that it's been shared enough.
And why do you think it still happens so much? Why is it still so prevalent with all of these acts?
I think that it's so prevalent because it's something that a lot of kids deal with, and they just don't know how to express it, and the old saying, monkey see, monkey do. So you can say that a lot of the boys just don't know how to express their anger in that type of situation.
Or girls too.
Yes, it's girls too, but they just don't know how to express that type of feeling, and they just put it on their partners because they don't know what to do.
I think also because a lot of young kids who deal with domestic violence in the home, maybe they think it's normal. That's what they grew up with, that's what they see. Or I think a lot of wives or husbands who are in this situation, or whoever it is who is the victim in the situation, is scared. Domestic violence isn't just a random person beating you up on the street. It's within your home.
Yeah.
It's how, when you have kids in this situation, are you going to take the father or mother away from the kid then? Or where are you going to go? It's a huge thing. I think it's just a very serious issue that isn't talked about enough, and unfortunately, because it's so close to home, it is home.
Yeah.
It's hard to reach out, and that's why it still happens so much.
Yeah, I recently watched a Netflix series called The Maid, and honestly, it was such an eye-opener to actually be able to see awareness for domestic violence, as it's talking about this woman who just wants to have safety in her home for her child, and she has to deal with having to worry about her child and having a job and trying to keep everything up while also trying to protect herself, because her abuser is everywhere, and her daughter does miss him, and she's just trying to make sure that she can do everything she can to do the best she can. And you can see the struggles that someone has to deal with.
And on average, people go back, or a victim goes back 7 times before they finally leave. I think it's hard because it's not so black and white. Yes, somebody is violent and hurting you in numerous ways, or any of the types of ways, but that doesn't mean there's no love. That doesn't mean there's no history. That doesn't mean it's always been like that. Sometimes one day people can just wake up and show their true side, or have some kind of switch flip,
Yeah, and you just don't
know what to do.
You don't know. You're like, oh, maybe it's just been a really bad day. But when you get that shake and that worry that you're going to get hurt or your child's going to get hurt, it's not worth it anymore. And I just think it takes them a while to really see that they can do it on their own, because that's what abusers like to do. They like to brainwash them to think that they can't go without
It's
them.
manipulation.
Yes, like financially. Oh, you can't go because how are you going to get around? How are
Who's
you going
gonna
to
be
pay?
there for you?
You
A
know?
big thing is isolation. They isolate you first.
Yeah,
And
you-
then they talk to you in ways that make you feel like you need them. You're dependent upon them, and it's
Yeah.
hard to leave.
And it's up to us to actually get the education that we need so we can look out for these signs for the ones that we love. Because once again, this does happen everywhere.
And the first step in that is spreading awareness.
And that is what we're doing today. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Once again, you are listening to The Purple Door, and you're listening to Elizabeth Grauer
Lindsay Koppel.
and I hope you guys have a fantastic day and spread awareness.
Bye.